Guys, the Polish power Jan Blachowicz was able to get 2 late takedowns and secure a nice victory over Israel Adesanya. We're talking about that fight and what's next for both contenders right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Guys, if you're new here, we talk about all things combat sports, so if that's what you're into, we really appreciate if you slap that like button and consider subscribing to our channel.
Absolutely.
So, Nick, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
Israel Adesanya was the latest competitor in the UFC to take a crack at greatness, take a crack at champ status.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, he came up a little short last night in what I thought was a great fight. I thought it was back and forth, and I thought both men saw some success at different times and in different areas.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic match, a war. A lot of people did have Izzy as the favorite, but nobody thought he was going to get over on Jan easily. Everybody kind of saw that this was probably going to be a war and would likely go to the more speed, the speedier guy and the more skillful guy in Izzy, but it turns out the Polish power is very real, and not only that, but his sticking to his game plan and showcasing all of the skills that he has in his arsenal really paid off for him.
The Polish takedowns are real, and the Polish ground and pound power is real. So, this fight was very interesting for me, and if I'm being honest, that was not how I really saw it going.
Yeah.
I knew it was, when we did our predictions video, I knew that this could go either way, that we both picked Izzy to win, but I thought this fight could just as easily go to Jan as it could to Izzy. But if Jan were to win this fight, I thought it was going to be from landing some big shots early, slowing Izzy down, making him a little more timid to engage, and hitting him with some serious power. What ended up winning him the fight was really good defense, and even Izzy after the fight and his coach Eugene Berriman were very complimentary of Jan's defense. Although he was biting on a lot of the feints, Izzy's the feint master. He's always throwing feints with his legs, with his hands, with his eyes. He looks here and hits you there. That's what makes him so dynamic, so fun to watch.
Right.
But Jan was very, very patient. He waited. He threw shots when he thought that he could land them. And then when he got in range where he saw the opportunity for the takedown, thinking and realizing that he had a grappling advantage, he took full advantage of that. So I think Jan, we have to give him some credit here because he played a very smart fight.
Yeah, and going up against Izzy, you have to be careful. And a lot of people, they try to do the right defense, but it winds up being the wrong thing, and they end up trying to check kick when he's going to the top, and they're blocking their face when he's destroying their legs. So it was really hard, but the checking of the kicks was great on Jan's part. He was timing that right. Every time Izzy would throw up one of those heavy head kicks with his powerful legs, which I thought if Izzy was going to get the fight finished was going to be a head kick. I didn't think he had quite the power in his hands to knock Jan out. But Jan was always answering with a couple of ways to block those kicks, and props to him for that because he was well prepared for him. His hands were always up. He was never caught slipping. It seemed like you're so right in that we both thought that, well, Izzy's going to have to get caught early for Jan to win, but it looks like he was able to play a long game. And it's so true when you have two guys that are going for something so great. And Jan had a lot on his back. He had the entire 205 division resting on his back while Izzy was going up for champ status. So that's always a big thing. And you generally, when big things like that are on the line, you're the main event of a huge fight, the biggest fight of the year so far, you just tend to not risk it as much. It tends to be a more calculated, slower paced match, and that's exactly what we got. I started to realize that in about round 3, when Izzy got caught, and not really caught, but Jan tried to take him down, and then he did land some things in the exchange, and then it started to pick up the pace of the fight.
Yeah.
A couple of little things they did in round 3 really picked up the pace of the fight, and I thought if Izzy would have started with that sort of pace and really hit that frequency more often, it would have been a fight that Izzy could have won. But obviously he started to slow down rather than speed up after round 3, and it just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, Izzy had a bad night and it just wasn't his fight. I kind of look at it as just Jan Blachowicz did exactly what he needed to do to win the fight. I don't say that Izzy did anything wrong. If I will say that Izzy made one big mistake in the fight, I would say it was in the 5th round when he I don't even want to say showboated, but he kind of moved around a little bit too much when he was in very close range with Jan. He was doing a good job at keeping Jan at a distance that he wanted in the earlier rounds, and Jan was getting a little frustrated trying to find his timing and find his shot, but that little mechanic and maneuver that he did there in the 5th round was way too close to Jan to do that. Jan picked up on it immediately and shot for the takedown. As soon as it happened, I looked to you, I said, that was a big mistake by Izzy. He's not going to get up now for the rest of the round, because Jan realized in the 4th round that if he keeps that good pressure from the half guard position, that Izzy can't get up from that, especially, and Jan did an extremely good job of every time Izzy was trying to inch back towards the cage. And as you know, the closer you are to the cage, the easier it is to get back to your feet. You can use the cage to wall walk and things like that. Jan did an excellent job of turning Izzy. He wasn't too eager to get out of that half guard position. He was very comfortable in that half guard position, using good pressure with the crossface, staying tight, staying close, and landing enough shots to stay busy and do what he needed to do. A lot of people were calling, I saw them on social media saying it should have been stood up. I completely disagree with that. Jan was in a dominant position. Israel could not get up from that position, and Jan was landing strikes. Whether or not those strikes are fight-ending strikes doesn't matter. He's landing unanswered strikes, and Izzy is having a hard time in that position, and it's a position in which he cannot get out of.
And Izzy, rather than attempting to escape and get back to his feet where he thought he would win the fight, he was trying to strike from the bottom. And what Jan has to do is keep his body tight to Izzy's and throw strikes when he can, and keep the body that's under him at all times. That's the goal when you're playing a top pressure game. And that just goes to show how flawlessly Jan was able to execute his game plan. Obviously, he got a little bit nervous. You could see it in the beginning. He was biting on all the feints, and that lasted throughout the entire fight. You would see him bite on almost everything as he was doing, and you have to understand that everybody's going to bite on things like that. When you have him throwing stuff like that and all of his opponents before, and if they don't listen or pay attention to it, they pay for it. So Jan was right in doing that, but he did seem a little bit nervous at first. But after a little while, he did start to get a little bit more comfortable. But his game plan was perfect, and I think part of it was, look, it's easier said than done to get Izzy to the ground, but if we do get him to the ground, which we think we probably can, as long as we don't show our cards too much with these takedowns and show them at the 1st round and get stuff, show them at the 2nd round. By the time 3rd, 4th, and 5th round come around, you're not landing those takedowns. So he really didn't try to go for him early, which made Izzy think that, okay, he's just going to try to stand and trade with me and knock me out. But no, I think his corner said, look, we're going to eventually get these takedowns that we need, and don't try to pass. Don't try to do anything flashy. Don't let him recover guard. Just hang out in a half guard. You'll score some points there. And I think with 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's about when he would go for him, 2 minutes, 3 minutes left in the round, that would give him enough time to keep Izzy down and win that round.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great point that, when you see a fighter who is just very clearly wanting to take the fight to the ground, and all they're doing right from the gate is shoot against a very good striker, you can pay for that. Case in point, Ben Askren against Jorge Masvidal. No secret what he was going to do. No feinting and no disguising what he was going to try to do. He came across the cage, did not set it up with any jab, any punch, anything, shot for a takedown, and lost the fight as a result of it by a vicious knockout. Jan was very sneaky and calculated with his takedowns, and I was watching it, and after 3 rounds, I was like, man, maybe Jan isn't going to try to take him down. I thought we would see some grappling in this fight. I didn't think that Jan would win by submission, but I said at least we're going to see some grappling exchanges, some takedown attempt, and I said, well, maybe I'm wrong. Nope, hold the phone. Jan was patient. He was patient with his strikes in the first couple rounds, and he was patient with his grappling and his takedowns in the last 2 rounds, which ultimately won him the fight. Now, I don't think that you or I are disagreeing with the outcome of that fight. I think Jan won that fight. I believe that you think Jan won that fight. I am a little bit perplexed at how the scorecards were handled. I didn't personally see a 10-8 round in that fight.
No,
I saw 10-9 rounds across the board. I saw 2 of the 3 early rounds for Izzy. I saw the last 2 rounds very clearly for Jan, and I think it was the second round that I scored. I'd have to go back and watch it. It's either the second or the third. Second round I had for Jan just by a slight advantage. This was a very close fight.
Yeah, and we saw it the same way. I saw the first round going to Izzy. I saw the second round going to Jan, in a close one, though, because I wouldn't have felt 100% confident going into the championship rounds if I was Jan's corner with having secured the second round. But third round, I would say, was clearly Izzy's round. And then the other 2 were clearly rounds won by Jan Blachowicz, but they weren't 10-8s. They weren't dominations. Dana White was talking about, he goes, 10-8s in my day, back when, even 5 years ago, a 10-8 was an ass whooping.
Yeah.
There was, on the brink of getting stopped multiple times, and that's when you'd see a 10-8, and he's like, I don't know where these guys are finding 10-8s in these rounds, but that was not a 10-8. He did say that he thought Jan won those rounds, but they were definitely not so dominant that they deserved a 10-8 scoring. And I find that so weird. I find that every week when we revisit these fights and we recap, we have to mention some sort of bluster that happens within the judging, and it's not just Las Vegas, and it's not, right now we're dealing with Fight Island and we're dealing with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, but whenever they're traveling, it's the same thing.
You get, not so long ago it was New York, and New York was the worst of all.
Right, and it would be, we'd almost feel like we were getting a break whenever we go back to somewhere like Nevada, who's used to seeing fights and MMA fights and stuff. But now it kind of feels like they're just as bad as everybody else, and I'm blown away at how lopsided and odd and weird the scoring is. And it wasn't just the main event. There were other fights on this. I think the Dominic Cruz fight had weird scoring. And,
it did.
And to me, it's just we have to have some sort of understanding of the rules, both that are mutually agreed upon by the fans, the fighters, the promotion, and the athletic commission, because it seems like casual fans, regular fans, diehard fans, we all come to the same conclusions week in and week out, but they're completely different than what the athletic commission's coming up with. And if we're misunderstanding the rules, please explain them to us. But I think that we kind of understand the sport.
Yeah, I think we do. And I think it's something that we really need to consider and talk about in a post-COVID fight world, because one day all of this will be behind us and fights will go back to normal and there'll be fans in the stands, and commissions like New York will start to host UFC events again, start to host Bellator events again, other places, California. And these are commissions, one that had major problems before COVID. And then now they haven't seen a fight or had anybody judge a fight in that state in quite some time. These people are going, they were bad to begin with. Now they're going to be bad and rusty on top of bad. So I think we're going to have a real problem as we go into 2021, 2022 and beyond. And I think there really ultimately needs to be some curriculum. I love the live scoring idea. I think that the fighters deserve to know what the scorecards are, because somebody could feel like they're beating the hell out of somebody and they could be right. And 2 judges who don't know, a leg kick from a double leg are scoring it the opposite way. That fighter will need to adjust their game plan going into the 3rd or 5th round based on what this judge has given him as a score thus far. So I don't think it's something that's just some small thing that, Dana gets pissed about it, he complains a little bit, and then we move on. I really think as a whole, this is kind of a serious problem that needs to be solved. Ultimately, last night, I think they got it. The biggest problems come when they get it wrong. If Izzy had won that fight, there would have been uproar. But since Jan won, and I think most people, myself certainly, think that Jan won that fight, I'm not so up in arms. But that judging, it could have easily gone the other way, and it could have been a very bad decision. And you can't do that to fighters. You can't do that to their trainers. You can't do that to the promotion. These people put too much effort, money, time, blood, sweat, and tears into this to have the judging go so awry.
And if you ask Jan Blachowicz last night if he feels like the round 4 and 5, the championship rounds of his fight last night against Izzy, were so dominant that they merit a 10-8 score, he would tell you absolutely not, because it was a struggle all the way till the final bell. And while I feel as they were announcing the winner and who was going to take home the belt, he was kind of confident. I'm sure he wasn't 100% at ease, like he had just taken somebody's soul with one of his KOs, and you just know your arm's going to get raised. I feel like maybe he was still a little bit like, I don't know, I think I edged it out. I think if I'm doing the math right, I won 3 of those rounds. And, for me, I think it's one of those situations that we have to figure out. There's no perfect scenario. And we're not at the worst position, but we need to find somewhere in the middle that is as close to perfect as we can get for the sake of the fighters, for the sake of the fans, for the sake of the commission, because they keep getting lambasted every weekend. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but they could do themselves a favor by just fixing a couple of errors and maybe changing a couple of fundamental norms that they've put in place.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it will never be perfect, but it could certainly be better than it is.
Yeah.
But looking forward now, Israel Adesanya, as he said, this was not my night. A lot of people were making much to do about the fact that this is his first loss in MMA. He said, look, guys, I've lost in life. I've lost family members. I've lost friends. I've gotten knocked out in kickboxing. I've lost in Western boxing.
Lose every day in the gym.
I lose every day in the gym. As anybody who trains knows that you lose every day in the gym in some form or fashion. So Izzy's, not making nearly as much of a big deal about the having to go as a lot of the journalists were. And I think rightfully so. I think that, like he said, he laid it out perfectly. Everybody loses. I don't think that was an unwinnable fight for me. No. I agree with him. I think if he had done a few things differently, that outcome could have been different. I don't think that if you ran that back that he would have no chance at winning. I certainly think Izzy's a guy who learns and adapts and gets better. So I think that he's making the right. He's handled this very well. I also think he's making the right decision to go back down to 185 for the time being, because I do think that Jan Blachowicz, he's a good champion. A lot of people didn't believe in him for whatever reason. They thought that maybe he just caught Dominic Reyes, but remember, Dominic Reyes was the guy that a lot of people thought beat John Jones.
Right.
And he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz.
Right.
So, I think now Jan Blachowicz is going to get some of the shine that he deserves. I think it was perfect that he called out Glover Teixeira.
Yes.
He seems like a guy who believes in the rankings. He believes in the veteran, the hierarchy. You made it, you're 42 years old. You just submitted Thiago Santos, another guy who people thought were competitive and some thought beat John, even with a busted knee. You weather the storm in the first round. You submit him in the second. You deserve to be in here with me next. Jan Blachowicz, I believe, is a great champion, and I'm actually looking quite forward to the fight.
As am I. That was so honorable of him. I love that, and I'm sure nobody had a bigger smile on their face last night than Glover Teixeira. I mean, throw the old dog a bone, right?
For
that
sure.
guy's really deserved a title fight, and if Izzy didn't step in, and obviously the UFC has to do what they have to do when you have a star like Izzy going up for champ status, you have to make everybody wait in line, kind of like what they're doing with John Jones and the heavyweights. You just have to do it in these certain situations. But Glover Teixeira is the right guy. He made weight, by the way.
Yeah.
He made weight just in case, COVID struck on any of the main eventers or anything like that. And, he's a company man. He's been there forever. He's always got a smile on his face. He doesn't ask for much, but a title shot against the baddest 205er on the planet isn't exactly him asking for an easy night out or a present from the UFC.
Right.
He's asking for his shot. He thinks he deserves it. I personally think he deserves it, and I couldn't be happier that Jan was so gracious in offering it to him.
Absolutely. With a combined age of 80 years old between the two of them, it's now or never. And so I believe they absolutely need to make this fight now. Glover has done a ton of heavy lifting for the UFC.
Yes.
I love Glover Teixeira. I'm so glad that Dana agreed that that's the fight they're going to make. And I think Israel Adesanya is right. Darren Till is the guy.
Yeah.
That's provided that he wins. And I think he's got a date with Marvin Vettori, which is also interesting because people are saying, is the winner of Whitaker Costa going to fight Izzy, or is it the winner of Vettori Till? I am leaning towards Vettori Till, and I'll tell you why, and it's just as simple as this. He's already beaten Whitaker and Costa.
Yeah.
He did beat Marvin Vettori, but remember, that was a split decision win. One of the three people watching that fight thought Marvin Vettori won, and he's not yet fought Darren Till. Darren Till's a polarizing guy. He's a big draw. Lately, he's been kind of win one, lose one, but he's still at the top of the heap, and I would love to see him fight the winner of that fight. to either go back and solidify that he was better than Vettori to begin with, or to beat a new challenger who he's yet to see in Darren Till.
Absolutely. And when you look at those four names, Costa, Whitaker, Till, and Vettori, all of those are great fights. X's and O's, they all match up well. They're all going to give Izzy at least somewhat of a difficult night in the office. But when you go to storylines, it's head and shoulders goes above for Darren Till and Vettori.
Yeah.
Darren Till can tell a story really well, and so can Israel Adesanya. That would be an amazing fight. Marvin Vettori is really coming into his own. He can tell a story, and he has one built in with their split decision fight way back in the day. And Marvin Vettori is a very different fighter than he was back then. Very strong, very powerful. Carries a chip on his shoulder. I think that would be a very fun one, and we'd get a lot of fun promotion behind it. As of right now, I don't see the fans wanting to get behind a Paulo Costa rematch or even a Robert Whitaker rematch that much right now. I think that Robert Whitaker is the Grim Reaper of the 185 division, and he is going to stop everybody that tries to get to the number one contenders matchup, and eventually they'll give him another shot at Izzy. But for right now, I think new faces and new parity is the way to go with Izzy. Let him truly clear out the division before he starts rematching people, and then makes his next move back up to 205, which I think he will return. You know, he did say dare to be great, and he tried, he dared. He didn't quite make it last night, but he's not done with his journey as a martial artist at 205, and I think he will be victorious once he steps into the light heavyweight frame later on in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think last night proved two things. It proved, one, how difficult it truly is to be a champ.
Yeah.
And it proved even more so how much more difficult it is to defend champ status, much like the lioness herself, Amanda Nunes, did. And we'll do a separate video for her. For sure. But I think that truthfully, with Israel Adesanya, last night's outcome, as history unfolds itself, will prove to be the best thing that could have happened. Because had he won, it would have totally held up 205. Because John's already put on all that mass, all that weight.
Right.
John's going to fight the winner of Stipe versus Francis before he moves back to 205. He didn't do all that work to not at least do one at heavyweight.
Right.
So that would totally... So Izzy wins, and now he's got to wait to see what happens with Stipe Francis. We know Stipe doesn't fight all that often. So let's say Stipe wins that fight. You got maybe another year before you get him in there with John, or at least 6 months. And then you got the winner of that, depending on how much damage comes of that, and it could be quite substantial. Yeah. Then you got to see how long that's going to take for him to recover, to bring his body weight back down, and then to challenge Izzy. They were saying December 2021. I think that's wishful thinking. I think it would have been early to mid 2022 before that fight ever materialized. So truthfully, and then Glover Teixeira would have just been screwed.
Yeah, he
would have never gotten
45 by then.
Yeah, he would have never gotten his chance. So truthfully, as much of a fan of Izzy as I am, I'm just as big a fan of Blachowicz, and I'm certainly a fan of Glover Teixeira. And I think all things considered, last night turned out to be the best outcome that I think could have happened.
Yeah, and one thing for Jan, I hope he doesn't start to beg for John Jones to come back down and give him a shot at the title. I think he needs to say, I ran John out of this division. He saw the silver lining. He knew what was coming. And I was inevitable. I was going to be locked in the octagon with him at some point. He didn't want any part of that. He'd rather go deal with the old slow heavyweights, and you leave the light heavyweight, the new and improved light heavyweights to me, and I'll be the leader down here. I'll be the king here, and I'll beat the guys that you guys think beat him or gave him his toughest matchups. And that's the narrative I would push if I was Jan. And then for him, I'd like to see him defend the 205 belt one, maybe two more times this year. Glover's obviously next, but maybe we'll see a Rakic get another win, and then he might wind up in a title fight later this year. But either way, the light heavyweight division seems fun. It's a little bit settled down back to normal, and Izzy's going back down to 185, so there's a clear path for some of those contenders to fight for the title. And I think last night was an awesome night for the UFC, awesome night for the light heavyweights, but none better than Jan Blachowicz last night.
Yeah, and at 38 years of age, just now seeing fame and fortune for the first time in his life, I think we're going to see Jan Blachowicz be very active, because he realizes that he's at the tail end of his career, but boy, could it be a wild finish.
Yeah, and like they say, power's the last thing to leave. That Polish power has not gone anywhere at all, and I think he's got at least 2 or 3 more years of being a dominant force at light heavyweight.
I agree. Guys, thanks so much for watching our video. What did you think of the fight? What do you think Izzy should do next? Do you think the Glover Teixeira fight is right for Jan? We love hearing from you guys in the comments. And as always, if you've enjoyed our video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And check us out on audio where you listen to those podcasts. Until next time, guys, have a wonderful day.
Peace.